Whew. Okay. Good morning. Good morning. Hi, everybody. I'm Tony Farrar from the Mechanical Engineering Department, and today I like to run late. Sorry for the slow setup on all the technology. A couple of announcements, a brief lecture unraveling some things that are confusing, and then time for you today to work with your companies to get phase one of the project done. That's what's up. So, first off, we have a policy here that we can't have our undergraduate TAs assign you grades. They are allowed to provide you feedback, but not grades. That's why some of you are seeing that there are comments on your submissions, but no grades yet. What we're doing, our strategy is that we're providing the comments to give you feedback, and then myself and the graduate teaching assistants are going through and actually assigning the grades. So we're keeping up with that as best we can. That's why there's a lag. It's not because you didn't get any credit for it. So bear with us there. We'll be updating those as rapidly as we can. Number 2, does this work today? Yes, cool. Heard ya. Django installation was giving some people trouble. If this is a thing that relates to you, at least today from 11 to noon, there will be somebody that knows how to do it in the library. We're working on getting some additional times, which we will announce to you so that you can walk in and get the support you need. For everyone, we are also working on a schedule for the group code hours where we will post expertise. So during these times, you can go in to get help with Swift, and these times you can go in to get help with Android and so on. So expect that soon. Cool. Any questions? Okay. So it turns out that the words print and return have nothing to do with each other. And yet, somehow, in the way that we've been using HackerRank, we have managed to create confusion over two things that just actually aren't even related. And so, whoops. It's one of these things that we didn't really see coming. But now that we have kind of experienced what's going on with you guys, we can clear it up pretty easily. So let's talk about what print and return really are, and I'll even tell you why it is that we've managed to confuse you. So, print displays the contents of a variable on a console. So you've seen me working in idle a lot, but there's the console.log that you can use if you're using things like Firefox Developer Edition and writing in JavaScript. The point is this: sticking a value of 5 in a variable called x doesn't cause anything to display. It's there in memory. If I ask x what's in it, x knows 5. But nothing gets printed when I run this code. You don't see the value of x, it's just there. It's hiding in the background. If, on the other hand, I add a command like print and run the code, now that 5 gets spit out at the console. And once again, that console could be in any language. Every one of them will have a console like this, depending on how you are developing. We can use print to print all kinds of things. So, for example, we could print some words, or we could print a number, or we could print this list that I've created. Without the word print added to each of these, we would still have created these variables and populated them with values, but we wouldn't have actually displayed them. And so if I run this, now out comes 3 things. And so in the assignments that you've been working on, You've been assembling things, right? Like sometimes we have to paste words and letters and numbers together to get it to display something. But nothing ever gets displayed until you say the word print. And depending on the language you're in, it might be a different word, but it means the same thing. Return, on the other hand, has a very, very different purpose. What return does is variables that are defined in a function and makes them available in the main program. So let me show you an example. In this function, two variables, one a and value 5a. They're called the value of 4 in. If I only ran part of the code, it can't at all, because this is just a new command that I've created, and it only runs when I call that function. However, the values a and b are available inside the function, out here in the main function. If I run this, it's going to yell at me that it can't print a, because a is not defined, even though A's are defined. If I want a to be available in my main function, my main code, I would have to return it. It would take that value from here and spit it out to the main part of the code. That's what return does. Here's the function called func, and if this function, it's going to be 15, assign it to code. If I ran my code without this print command on it, what would happen is there would now be a variable called result that would store the value of 14. Once again, just by running that, it wouldn't display it, but now out there in the main part of my code, there is a variable called result, and sitting inside it is a value of 14. And if I run the code with the print command, it would prove that by displaying it to you at the console. So, return didn't display anything, print did. Now for how we confused you. HackerRank. HackerRank is nothing more than a text comparison app. It runs your code, and it looks at what got printed to the console, and it compares it to what we should have been printed at the console. And if they don't match, it says something didn't work. And the thing that we're learning to do, and hopefully getting better at over time, is that we're creating test cases that, depending on which of your output doesn't match ours, actually can indicate a particular comment somebody makes and give you that feedback so you can learn from your errors, right? So one example might be the fence post problem, where you know now that delta x needs to be calculated with n minus 1 on the bottom of the fraction, not n. We could write two test cases that would display whether or not you remembered to do the n minus 1 trick. And if not, that would cause a different error to do that. But HackerRank, all it's doing is taking the text that you print to the console and comparing it to what we told it should see. So here's how this gets confusing. This is the window that you're used to seeing. We usually give you some comments. We might even tell you, hey, I want you to write these two functions, so fill them in. They're going to do something. What you don't see is that there is some initialization code that is hidden from you. And afterwards, there is some hidden test case code that is also something you can't see. In this particular example, the way that I've written it, this code calls the function that we're asking you to create and then prints the values of x and y. And so if you write two functions here without any print commands, even though you can't see it, HackerRank will print this for you. And then it'll check to see if it, whoop, I clicked too many times the wrong direction. And then it'll check to see if your output matches ours. So if we set the problem up this way, the hidden code calls your function, captures the return value, and prints them. And so you need to return values, but you don't need to print. We did it for you. Sometimes we set the problems up like that. Other times, we set the problem up like this. Now there's a main function down here. We want you to write your functions and call them. I realize you can't read the text, just trust me, it's there. There's still the hidden initialization code, but down here, instead of calling print, we call the main and expect you to type the word print, because we wanted you to deal with formatting the output properly. And so, in a situation like this, we call your function, but we don't capture the return values or print them, and so that means that in your functions, you need to use the word print. So because we flip-flop back and forth on which way we set these problems up, we've now kind of mushed these two ideas together in some people's brains, even though they're unrelated. So hopefully what you see here is print and return actually have nothing to do with each other, but in HackerRank only operates if you print something. And so here's the easy way to find out whether you need to bother printing your results or not. Oh wait, never mind. First, if we ask you to write a function called main, it probably means you need to print your own results. Because usually what's happened is the hidden code at the bottom of the page is the main and the ones that we print for you. So if we're not hiding main from you, you can write it yourself. But the really easy way to do this is when you run your code for the first time, if it doesn't print something, that tells you you need to print something. So for example, here's a case where I ran my code and it says my output is a blank line. Except it was expecting an output that looked like this. Presuming that I actually called my function, if I hadn't printed anything, this is what would happen. And so the answer is I need to go in and I need to write some print statements that print t, x, and y. But on the other hand, you might have run a different assignment and it printed something already for you. Maybe it matched, maybe it didn't. Now you know why. Sometimes we write the print command in there for you, but we hid it. And other times we didn't. So this is a thing we didn't really realize was going to be an issue. Hopefully we've clarified it. Question back here.
What's the purpose of hiding the code from us?
I don't know if we can show it to you, first off, because it's kind of this weird wrapper code that makes HackerRank work. So there isn't really an intentional purpose behind hiding it, other than showing it for some people might be instructive and for other people might be overwhelming and confusing because there's all this like weird stuff and if you don't know why it's there. So that's something we're playing with. But the answer is we're not really intentionally hiding it from you because we don't want you to know what's up because we tell you all the test cases anyhow. Yeah. Other questions? Have I fixed this? Anytime, when the question was when do you return? Anytime you need to take a value out of a function and use it in the main part of your code, you have to return it. Otherwise, it doesn't exist outside of your function. The trick is that when we give you assignments, sometimes all we're asking you to do is complete a function, and other times we're asking you to complete a function and call print commands inside of it. And so the answer is it's always proper to return. In fact, some languages, like Java, will actually throw an error at you if you don't return something. And so it's good practice that if your code runs and calculates something, you should return that thing. And then if it starts failing test cases, you know the answer is I've got to print something too. Questions? Hopefully this clears it up for you a little bit. If not, go explore a little bit. See if this comes back to your mind as you start working on some assignments. And if not, ask me questions because we will help you out. Okay, so clicking back through all my animated stuff. There we go. So this week, just as a friendly reminder, you should be done with all the things. Tonight at 11:59 p.m. is the cutoff for our assessment of eligibility for Phase 1. That doesn't mean that you're now excluded from the project forever. What it means is you won't get credit for Phase 1. So you can go look at the syllabus and see how that affects your grade. But it means if you don't make it, that you should get it in gear and finish these things up so that you can be eligible for Phase 2. And this continues to roll the entire way to the end of the semester. The sooner you get eligible, the higher your final grade can be in the course. So I suggest you do that. We're going to work in class today on parts of this project. Phase 1, I wanted to go over, let's see, so that's, I already said that. All the things. We're working on getting the grading updates for this part, so don't worry about it for now. If you're unsure but you think you turned everything in, clearly you should be working with your company on phase 1 of the project. Okay, so we talked about this last time. I don't want to hit you with it too much again, other than to say this week what we're working on really is the design side of your project. You're going to be designing the layout, coming up with the answer to the question of what does this thing do? Next week you're going to write code that makes the main thing that it does work, and then from there you're going to be expanding it to do all the other things, fully functional GUIs, things like that, and then finally you're going to run a demo of it for us where you actually get users to test drive it and see what their experience is like. As far as the logistics are concerned, they are due firm deadline 11:59 p.m. This first one will be due this Monday. Okay? I suggest you submit what you have if you haven't finished it, because we're not taking late work and we're not giving extensions. What we want is one submission per group. So, people, pick somebody who's going to submit your work and then hold their toes to the fire to get it turned in. Finally, when you turn it in, list the names of everybody that contributed to the assignment, and we'll make sure that everybody gets credit that's eligible. What I would like to request is that you give us a single PDF containing all the stuff. So if you're doing screenshots and things like that, paste your screenshots into Word and then save Word as a PDF and then upload the PDF. And that way it's nice and organized and easy for us to give you good feedback on. This is what is due on Monday. Okay? What I want you to do is give us an introduction, paragraph description of the project, a little bit of motivation, a bulleted list of what your app. We're actually going to evaluate that to help you, set a reasonable goal for this semester. Identify the main thing that it does, the core feature, because that's what you're actually going to be coding next week. So you're kind of defining your project for next week for us. We want to see your value proposition, and we want to see your paper prototype, and then that'll lead you to a non-functional GUI prototype laid out in the studio. So you'll be dragging and dropping the boxes by the end of this assignment, but they don't have to work yet. You're just laying everything out. Okay, so let me describe this paper prototype for you a second time, and then I'll turn you loose to work on it yourself. What we want to do here is essentially grab a stack of paper and sketch the thing you're going to see when you open your app. All the buttons, right? And then the question is, what's it look like if somebody pushes this button? And so now you go to a new piece of paper and you draw what it looks like when they push that button. And then what I want you to do in smaller text off to the side or somewhere is you can list like a go-to page number for each of these buttons. So you could push it and it says, okay, we'll go to page 4 and this is what they'd see. And the point behind this is that when you're done, you can hand this stack of paper to somebody and they can essentially run your app without ever having to do any coding, without ever having to drag and drop boxes and nitpick with it. And what it's going to help you do is get through the design part of your project of making something that people can actually use. You're going to discover navigational rabbit holes where you get stuck and you can't get back to the main screen. You're going to discover unclear things or things that need displayed that you hadn't thought of just by doing this. And so that's what we're asking for there. And then for the non-functional GUI prototype, what we're asking you to do is kind of turn that into the layout in the studio where you're dragging and dropping and making it pretty. But this is something you can iterate on a couple of times pretty quickly and easily. I even have a sample to let you know what it is we're thinking about. So let me open that for you. You'll have to forgive the scan here. It was not the brightest thing in the world. So this is like a home screen for this particular app. What it's going to do is it asks you to enter an address, and then you push the button. Here you can see a little tooltip that says go to page 2. So if somebody were to type something in and click this button, it would go to page 2. And page 2, let's see, looks like that. It says searching, searching, searching. And then from there, we're going to go to page 3, which starts to show this map and some things. And when you click on stuff, it says go to different pages. And those pages lead you to new options, like here's closer, and it gives you some messages, what would happen in different conditions, things like that. Here's an updated thing after you push some buttons. It says go to this page and do something different. And ultimately, the app calculates things and displays like how much time you have left in your thing and whatnot. This is what we're asking you to do with your company. Okay, so we're essentially drawing the app out like a storyboard. What would happen if you played it? But you can hold it as a packet of paper and even test drive it on strangers who don't know what it's supposed to do to see if they get lost. Questions? So my suggestion for the rest of the period today is to use your time on the 2 options that I made bold, because those are really best done while you've got everybody together anyhow. Okay, so if you haven't done this part yet, list out your minimum viable product features, and then from there, identify the core feature, and then start in on this paper prototyping thing. But we want that full deck as part of what you turn in on Monday. If you don't have any questions, I will turn you loose to get started. And I'm here to support, as are your team leads. Hey, thanks everybody. Have a good one. Let's do this. Thanks for